You know, before I begin this weekly press conference, I want to do something different. I want to spend a few minutes paying tribute to an American hero that we lost yesterday. You all knew him, Congressman Sam Johnson. He was a hero in every sense of the word. Sam was a Republican member who served in this chamber for 28 years. But before being sworn in as a member of Congress, Sam had already done for this country more than almost anybody else in his lifetime could. You see, Sam was an Air Force pilot. He flew missions in Korea and Vietnam. He was shot down. He served in Hanoi Hilton 7 years. 3.5 of those years was in solitary confinement. Sam was one of those type of individuals it's just an honor to get to know. But I want to tell you some personal stories about Sam, so the rest of the country can know who this real hero was. Sam was on my deputy whip team, and when Sam would come to the meetings, we always had one special chair for him, but there's one thing Sam always wanted: these chocolate Krispy Kreme donuts. And it's amazing, you could sit there and he could eat 3-4 donuts all within a meeting. And I remembered one day we had some new staff, and they didn't get Krispy Kreme. And I heard Sam say something about it. I quickly called another staff member who was still home that lived up by a Krispy Kreme to bring him on down. And when we went to the floor that day, I snuck in a couple Krispy Kremes for Sam on the floor. And when you looked at his face and smiled, you knew that he deserved it. You know, every new Congress, I would buy a number of Sam's books, Captive Warrior. And the reason I would buy them is I remember reading it as a freshman. And for anyone who's ever tried reading this book, you cannot read it in one setting. You will become emotionally upset knowing what he had to go through. Telling of his life story, telling of him being shot down, the treatment, the broken arms, the number of times as a prisoner being put in, he'd tell a story of the North Vietnamese putting a rifle to his head or taking him out to killing him. And in that moment came when he's telling this story, he'd almost smile and he goes, you know what? They're gun jammed. He could find happiness in the most unbelievable times. And in reading this book, it brought me to tears at times, knowing what he had to go through. And I remember seeing him on the floor one day, and I walked up to him as a freshman. I said, Sam, I just finished your book. I just want to thank you for your service. And I have to tell you, I can't believe the things you went through. Sam just hit me and said, oh, you could have done it. No. Very few people could ever have done what he did. Even in the times of his almost daily beatings, it tells at the time when I'd take him to dinner, I'd buy all the freshmen the book, he would sign it, and he loved Ruth Chris. And you know, there's a certain one that he wanted to go to, a certain steak he wanted to buy, and a certain red wine. And as we would go, he would tell the stories and we'd give him all the book. And I remember him telling this one story, it's in the book as well, that he was being brought in to one of his captors who would beat him. And he knew what was going to happen again. And as you knew Sam, he still was a hard time to walk. He didn't have fillings in his hands from the beatings that he had taken, or his legs being shackled together. He goes to the individual who's his captor holding him, and he tells him, hey, we're going to escape, and we're going to go back to America. Do you want to go with us? He never lost the sight of the greatness of this country. That America is more than a country, that America is an idea worth fighting for, dying for. And he proved it every step of every day of his life. And we lost somebody that walked these halls that was an honor to serve with, an honor to call a friend. And I think he deserves more time than just the time I was able to give to him today. Now let's talk a little bit about this week. It was a historical week. A week we have not seen in the 231 years of history of this chamber. For the first time, the Democrats have now allowed proxy voting. You know, through the history of America, from the yellow fever of 1793 to the Civil War to even this building being burnt down during the War of 1812, to 9/11, to World War II, all of those challenges we've always found the opportunity to meet. That we believe we are essential, just as all those Americans out there are doing their essential work as well, from the doctors to delivery drivers to dispatchers. Unfortunately, the Democrats believe differently. 2 weeks ago, we voted on the HEROES Act, and 12 Democrats could not make it. Yesterday, even though they were given a 2-week notice when to come back, more than 70 voted by proxy. In coming to this proxy decision, the Speaker and Chairman McGovern gave a lot of stringent facts of how this would be used. In fact, the guidelines specifically stated that you must be unable to physically attend proceedings in the House chambers due to ongoing health emergencies. The Speaker insisted voting by proxy was intended to be the last resort, an alternative to traveling to D.C. due to health concerns. And Rules Chairman McGovern promised that this unprecedented step would be temporary and tied to a pandemic. Yesterday, Democrat Congressman Charlie Crist admitted he used the proxy vote to attend a space launch in Florida, an event that's 150 miles away from his district, on the other side of the state. To get there, it took him about 2.5 hours to drive there, about the same amount of time as a flight from Tampa to D.C. But instead of going to work and serving as a voice of his constituents, Charlie decided to play hooky. But in doing so, Charlie sent the House of Representatives a letter that he signed. And in signing this letter, Charlie said, "I am unable to physically attend proceedings in the House chambers due to the ongoing public health emergency." But he drove 2.5 hours to watch a launch outside of his district and gave somebody else the power to vote. I wonder if Charlie will cash his check this month. I wonder if those 70 Democrats will still take their check. The question before all members of Congress on their first day is to raise their hand and swear to uphold the Constitution. The Constitution is very clear about this. They expect us to assemble. If you take Chairman McGovern's own words when he first looked at this, he was concerned about proxy voting because of the constitutionality of it. He was right then, but he's wrong now. They believe that Congress can write their own rules. Congress can write their own rules. They just can't write unconstitutional rules. If you take them at their word, they can write a rule that says Republicans only get half a vote, that women cannot vote. That would be Congress writing their own rules. Article 1, Section 4, Section 5, and Section 6. Very clear we're supposed to assemble. Very clear that if you're not at work, they could find a place and get you and bring you. Very clear that someone cannot obstruct you from getting to the work. For 231 years, we found the ability to do that. But why would they want to go against the Constitution to provide proxies? It provides the Speaker more power, that is true. The Speaker, in her own words yesterday, admitted that the crisis is an opportunity. Every crisis is. She's not the only one on the Democrat side that believes that. Congresswoman J. Paul, for me, the leverage is that there is enormous suffering. The number 3, Congressman Clyburn said, this is a tremendous opportunity to restructure things to fit our vision. And last week, even Democrats admitted their legislative proposal was more of a wish list than a serious proposal at that. A pandemic is not an opportunity. A health crisis is not a free-for-all to restructure our government. We instead should be working together to reinforce the promise and progress we are seeing take place in this country. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.